The genocide in Darfur, which is West of Sudan, started in 2003 and is one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent history. A humanitarian crisis means a situation where a lot of people are suffering and need help to survive. In this case, millions of people were affected by violence, hunger, and being forced out of their homes. Even though this started over 20 years ago, the impact is still fully not over today. The main groups that were targeted were non-Arab ethnic groups, especially the Fur people, the Mesopotamian people, the Zimbabwe people. These groups were attacked by militants called Janjaweed, who were supported by the government. Even though many of these people shared the same religion, Islam, they were still treated as different because of their ethnicity. This connects to what we learn in Chapter 9 about how ethnicity is socially constructed. That means people create these categories so they can be used to divide others, even if differences are not that big. There are a few main reasons why the conflict started. One big reason is competition over land and water. Darfur had droughts, which means there's not always enough water or farmland for everyone. This caused tension between groups. Another reason is non-Arab groups felt like they were treated unfairly by the government. They didn't have as much power, money, or support. When some of these groups protested and asked for a change, the government reacted with violence. Instead of helping solve the problem, they used Janjaweed militias to attack villages, which made the situation much worse. I do think the term ethnic cleansing fits what happened here. People were forced out of their homes just because who they were. Villages were burnt down so certain groups could not live there anymore. But I also think the word genocide fits even better. Groups like United Nations said this was just genocide because there is a clear intent to destroy these groups and killing through violence. So both these terms apply, but genocide is the stronger and more accurate. The violence started in 2003 and lasted for many years. Some of these problems are still going around today. Around 300,000 people were killed and more than 2.5 million people had to leave their homes. Families lost everything. Besides killing, there were other more serious crimes. Villages were destroyed, people starved, and many women were harmed. These actions caused long-term damage, not physically but also emotionally for survivors. This connects to social conflict patterns from Chapter 9. One pattern is exploitation, which is where people are forced to leave their homes. That clearly happened with millions of people. Another pattern is segregation. Because groups were separated and treated differently, there was also denomination, where groups used power and violence to control one another. There was no real attempt at acculturation because the goal was not to live together. It was to remove one group completely. Because of all this violence, people had to flee to other places. Large numbers of refugees went to nearby countries like Chad and South Sudan. These people often live in refugee camps where life can be very difficult. They might not get enough food, clean water, or medical care. Many children live in these camps and also struggle to get an education, which can affect their future. There was some help around the world, but many people believed it was not enough and came too late. The United Nations and the African Union sent peacekeepers to try and protect the people. Aid groups like Doctors Without Borders helped by giving medical care and supplies. Even with this help, many lives have already been lost before strong action was taken. The most important thing I learned about my topic is how preventable this might have been. There were warning signs early on, but not enough was done on time. This shows how important it is for countries and organizations to act quickly when human rights are being violated. It also shows how dangerous it can be when people are divided by ethnicity and treated unfairly. In the end, genocide in Darfur shows how serious social problems like inequity, racism, and the lack of resources can lead to extreme violence. It reminds us why it is important to treat people equally and to stand up against justice before it gets even worse.